Tunggu sebentar, bentar. Tuh. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. You can.
Hare Krishna, Bharupati.
We can start the Ram Katha.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatarane. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you for all who've come. I see one PRI is there. If that's PRI Mohan Prabhu, my obeisances. Hare Krishna. I'll speak this evening from Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 9th canto, there's a brief description of the pastimes of Lord Ramchandra. Brief because Shukadev Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, surely you've heard many times about the activities of Lord Ramchandra. There are many such descriptions, Ramayanas, of which the Valmiki Ramayan is most important and authoritative. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, a summary is given. In the 10th chapter, there's a verse that highlights the dual nature of Lord Ramchandra's pastimes. Rakshodhamena Vrikavad Vipine Samaksham Vaideha Raja Duhitar Yapaya Pitayam Bhratra Vane Kripanavad Priyaya Viyukta Sri Sanginam Gatim Iti Pratayami Pratayam. When Ramchandra entered the forest, Lakshman was also absent. The worst of the Rakshasas, Ravana, kidnapped Sita Devi, the daughter of the king of Videha, just as a tiger seizes unprotected sheep when the shepherd is absent. Then Lord Ramchandra wandered in the forest with his brother Lakshman, as if very much distressed due to separation from his wife. Thus he showed by his personal example the condition of a person attached to women. And Srila Prabhupada in his purport highlights, as I said, the dual nature of this example. On the one side, Lord Ramchandra shows how troublesome this association can be. And on the other side, he shows how the highest experience of uh, transcendental loving dealings is manifest in the pastimes of the Lord with his eternal consort. Prabhupada, uh, first he deals with the first issue. Stri Sanginam Gatim Iti indicates the condition of a person attached to women, as shown by the Lord himself. Grihe Narim Vivarjayet, when one goes on a tour, one shouldn't bring his wife. Formerly, men used to travel without conveyances. Still, as far as possible, when one leaves home, one should not take his wife with him, especially if one is in such a condition as Lord Ramchandra, when banished by the order of his father. Whether in the forest or at home, if one is attached to women, this attachment is always troublesome, as shown by the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his personal example. So that's one side. It was certainly troublesome even for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He brought his wife with him to the forest, and she was kidnapped by Rakshodhama, the lowest Adhama of the Rakshasas. Rakshodhamena Vrikavad, just as a tiger seizes sheep, this Ravana captured Sita Devi, Vipine in the forest, Asamaksham, where she was unprotected. You know the history. She was, of course, Vaideha Raja Duhitari. She was protected first by her Videharaj. And then she was handed over to Lord Ramchandra. And even in the forest, she was protected by the Lord. But then by the trick of Mricha and Ravana, the Lord Ramchandra pursued the Mricha's golden deer form. The history was told by Bhakti Charamarj the other yesterday evening that he knew how powerful Lord Ramchandra was, so he was very reluctant to accept this assignment of taking the form of a deer to distract the Lord. He said, if I do this, Lord Ramchandra will kill me. And Ravana replied, if you don't do it, then I'll kill you. All right, better to be killed by Lord Ramchandra than a rascal like you. So when Lord Ramchandra was distracted or pulled away by the pursuit of the golden deer, then when the deer was killed, he cried out, Lakshman, Lakshman, and Sita Devi thought that, oh, Ram is in trouble. Lakshman, no, he's not in trouble. For Ram, there's no trouble. You just want to be with me. So that was too much. So then Lakshman drew his Rekha, his line, to protect her. Uh, don't step outside this line, and went to assist Lord Ram. So, of course, she stepped outside the line, and then she was unprotected. And unprotected means vulnerable to exploitation. So Ravana kidnapped Sita Devi, and even though Jatayu tried to stop him, that also was unsuccessful. Of course, that's a glorious incident. Jatayu was challenged Ravana, you can't do this. And yes, fought with him. But the Jatayu was old, and Ravana cut off his wings, and he fell to the ground, and Ravana carried on to Lanka. So it appeared that Jatayu failed in his mission. But devotional service is such that even in failure, it's a success. The Lord Ramchandra appreciated, had so much gratitude for the service of Jatayu that he himself performed the funeral ceremony for Jatayu just like a dutiful son. So this is the business of the devotee, to try to serve the Lord. The result may come or may not come, but on the spiritual platform, the endeavor itself is the success. On the material platform, the result is the success, but on the spiritual platform, even the endeavor constitutes success. So the Sita Devi was captured and brought to Lanka. And Ram is wandering in the forest in separation from his wife, Bratra Vane Kripanavat. Along with his brother, he's wandering Vane in the forest. Kripanavat. Kripanavat means just like how's Prabhupada say it? A distressed person, a person who's person who's distressed. That's good enough. Materially distressed. Kripanavat. Kripanavat. As if distressed. He's playing. Bhakti Charamar said that yesterday also, that the pastimes that Krishna performs, or in his different incarnations as Ram, as Nrsimha, are dramatic performances. One of his purposes is to attract the conditioned souls. So he puts on these great dramas. In this drama, Lord Ramchandra is sent to the forest. He loses his wife. So many distressing things happen. This is drama. There has to be some obstacle. If there's no obstacle, there's no drama. Drama means there must be some almost insurmountable obstacles for the hero to overcome. So here, Kripanavat, Lord Ramchandra is playing the part of a human being. He's not a human being, but he's playing as if a human being. Manasham Tanamashrita. Only the fools think that Krishna is, or Ram is, an ordinary human being or just a great hero. Param Bhavam Ajananto. They don't understand his transcendental nature as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kripanavat. So he appears to be suffering like an ordinary man. Ordinary men suffer so much because of their uh, hmm, relationship with women. Uh, if they have no relationship with women, that also causes suffering. I have no wife. Uh, and if he gets married, then he suffers the other way. So many problems with my wife. Uh, so many. We won't go down the inventory. Everything from expenses to uh, anxieties, and I'm not happy, and what about this and what about that. There's so many uh, troubles in householder life, and every householder knows it. Every householder knows it. Uh, Even now, with this pandemic, practically all the family people are going through difficulties. Everyone else is going through difficulties also, but especially in family life, there are so many responsibilities, so many expenses, children, and the the combined weight of this can be quite uh, worrisome and distressing. Hmm? And for those who are not married, it's easier. Of course, any conditioned soul, married, not married, Brahmana, Shudra, sannyasi, householder, brahmachari, anyone who's accepted this material body must undergo distress. They must undergo distress. Uh, there's no exemption. The material world means uh, anityam asukam lokam, uh, dukhalayam ashashvatam. That's the nature of the material world. It's designed, you can say it's designed to be distressing, or you can say we make it distressing because we forget Krishna. In pure consciousness, we're connected with Krishna. We have our eternal, uh, healthy life with no birth, no death, no old age, no disease. But when we forget Krishna, then we bring about our own suffering. We cause our own trouble in so many ways. Uh, it's our own consciousness that creates this material world. The child who just leaves home creates his own troubles. It's not that the parents have created it. The child himself creates the problems by leaving the protection of his family. So the conditioned soul, or the soul who misuses his tiny independence, turns away from Krishna and therefore suffers. I remember an example. One time we were with Srila Prabhupada in an airport. Prabhupada was waiting for a plane, and we were sitting in some waiting area. So many devotees and Prabhupada sitting. And there was one uh, lady with a little child, uh, still in diapers, but walking around, able to walk. So while we were all sitting there, the child began to explore a little bit, uh, walking about. Yeah, little child and so many big people. But the child began to explore, and Prabhupada said, "Oh, he is very brave." And then after just a few moments, the child looked around, and he's lost amidst the legs of all these uh, men and women, and he didn't see his mother, and his face uh, crumpled, and the child began to cry. So Prabhupada said, this is our situation, that we're very bold, we'll be happy on our own. But then when we actually uh, forget Krishna and disconnect ourselves from Krishna, as it were, then so many troubles, so much distress. And we try to mitigate this distress by uh, happy married life. and that also becomes problematic, distressful. Uh, Here in the pastimes of Lord Ramchandra, uh, his faithful wife comes with him to the forest, but she's kidnapped, and then so much distress. And the Lord uh, appears to lament like an ordinary human being pining away for the uh, company of his wife. So Kripanavat, Priyayaha, Viyukta. Viyukta, yukta means connected, and Viyukta means separated. Priyaya, from his dear wife. In the material world, this dearness is created essentially by the illusory energy because it's in relationship to the temporary body and temporary mind. So someone becomes dear to us, and then there's complete disconnection. At the time of death, the wife or husband that was so dear to me um, is completely separated. And I have to go to another body, they have to go to another body. Then the wife becomes dear to somebody else, the husband becomes dear to somebody else, and the former dear relationship is forgotten. Or even sometimes in this lifetime, there's this loving relationship established, but then things turn nasty and there's divorce, and the same couple that were so dear to one another find themselves in court arguing over uh, every stick of furniture, arguing over child custody and arguing over property. Uh, the whole thing was undertaken for happiness, and they expressed how dear they were to one another, and then the whole thing turned sour. Yad Vishyendriya Sangyogat Yad Tadagre Mritopama Pariname Vishamiva Tatsukam Rajasam Smritam. In the mode of passion, especially, these things are seen. This happiness in the beginning and misery at the end. So Lord Ramchandra illustrated by his personal example, or played the part, the dramatic part of a husband separated from his wife and undergoing the troubles of a person. Stri Sangina. Stri Sangi means a person who's connected, or Prabhupada translates attached to women. Stri Sanginam Gatim. This is where it ends up. Iti. Pratyams Chachara. So Lord Ramchandra set the example of how that is. At the same time, he was very dutiful. He didn't just say that, oh, so much trouble, forget this Sita. He underwent so much difficulty. This is my duty. I have to protect my wife. And he killed Ravana, and so many things happen. So that's on the one side. Then on the other side, Prabhupada said that Lord Ramchandra's Stri Sangha, his association with the form of a woman, and his apparent distress had nothing to do with the material world. Narayana Parovyakta, the Lord is transcendental to the material creation. Because he's the creator of the material world, he's not subject to the conditions of the material world. So the separation of Lord Ramchandra from Sita is spiritually understood as Vipralambha, an activity of the Hladini potency, the pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. belonging to the Shringar Ras, the mellow of conjugal love in the spiritual world. So this is something, the uh, everything is there in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Janmadyasya, he's the origin of everything. So he's the origin of these loving relationships also. The loving relationships here between friends, between parent and child, between lover and beloved, husband and wife, are found because their original pure counterpart is present in the spiritual world, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Ladhini Shakti. Ladhini Shakti means the pleasure potency of the Lord. Sita Devi is not just the daughter of a king. She's actually the expansion of Lord Ramchandra's pleasure potency. The Lord has the potency, the power to enjoy, and he can expand that potency in personal form. So Krishna expands as Srimati Radharani, and Lord Ramchandra expands as Sita Devi. Or it can be also understood that Krishna expands as Lord Ramchandra and Radharani expands as Sita Devi. Either way, the Lord is present with his pleasure potency. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. The Lord is by nature full of variegated powers, potencies. That's the meaning of the Lord. A Lord without power can't be the Lord. Just like the president, he has the power to call out the National Guard. He has the power to demand that businesses do this or that. He has the power to do so many things. If he has no power, then what's the use of being president? It's nothing. It's nothing. If you're the head of a corporation, you have to have the powers of the head of the corporation. So the Lord has all powers. That's the definition of God, all powerful. So he can't be impersonal. Power means that there's power and there's the controller of the power. So that controller is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he has so many different potencies to do so many different things. And his, especially, he has the spiritual pleasure potency. He has the potency of knowledge. He has the potency of eternal existence. And he has the potency of knowledge, of pleasure. So Ram and Sita are not just the perfect king and queen, as in some ordinary tale, but Lord Ramchandra is the Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Sita Devi is his Ladhini Shakti, or pleasure potency. The conditioned soul, when he wants to enjoy pleasure, has to find someone to enjoy pleasure with. But the Krishna or Lord Ramchandra, they enjoy by their own potency. They expand their pleasure energy, which is not different from them, as the sun and the sunshine are not different. So when we're seeing Radha Krishna, when we're seeing Sita Ram or Lakshmi Narayan, we're seeing the Supreme Lord along with his spiritual pleasure potency. Now, in the dealings of the Lord with the pleasure potency, there are various different kinds of emotional exchanges. Sometimes they're meeting together, sometimes they're joking together, Sometimes they're enjoying in different ways, and sometimes there's separation. Uh, Sometimes there's separation. What is that? Viyukta. Sometimes they're separated. And then the sign of that separation, or the mood of that separation, is intense distress. Intense distress. But we understand from the acharyas that on the spiritual platform, that distress is also relishable. In the material world, distress is just lousy. Distress is miserable. No one wants to be in distress. But on the spiritual platform, uh, that distress is a kind of ecstasy. Because in separation, one intensely feels the presence of the Lord. The absence is felt so intensely that it becomes presence. When the gopis were missing Krishna, Krishna disappeared from the rasa dance. Then they were embracing the trees as if the trees were Krishna. They were mad, asking all the different forest animals, have you seen Krishna? Have you seen Krishna? They were enacting the pastimes of the Lord. Some gopi became a demon, and some other gopi became Krishna and killed the demon. Some gopi became Kaliya, and another gopi became Krishna and is subduing Kaliya. So in this way, they became even more absorbed in thinking of Krishna. We have that experience even in ordinary life. Um, we have our car keys in our pocket and we take them for granted. But if we can't find them, then where are my keys? Where did I put my keys? You start reviewing. Did I leave them here? Did I leave them there? Where are they? What will I do? Where are those keys? One becomes absorbed in thinking of these keys because they might be lost. Where are they? Where are they? Otherwise, when they're in my pocket and I know they're in my pocket, I think of so many other things. No problem. But when they seem lost, then they absorb, they command my full attention. So in this feeling of separation, the mm, the lover and beloved become still more absorbed in thinking of one another. Sita Devi is confined in the Ashoka Grove and simply thinking of Ram, simply thinking of Ram. And Ram is wandering about in the forest and only thinking about Sita Devi. Where is Sita Devi? How to find her? What to do? And that absorption on the spiritual platform is a kind of ecstasy. There was a picture at 26 Second Avenue. There was a little table on the side. On those who've been to 26 Second Avenue, on the right-hand side of the temple, there was a little table. It was quite a nice little table, like valuable little table, quality wood and all of that. An unusual little table to have in 26 Second Avenue. And it was a little kind of an altar. It had little pictures. And one of the pictures was a picture of Prabhupada. And Prabhupada had a sort of a very long face, as if very happy, very unhappy. And one time, Jadharani said to Srila Prabhupada that, Swamiji, in this picture you look very unhappy. And Prabhupada said, that was a moment of ecstasy. So on the spiritual platform, the on the material platform, there's duality. So there's happiness and distress. But on the spiritual platform, the happiness and the distress are equally good. They're both spiritual. There's no difference that happiness is relishable and distress is miserable. Even the distress is joyful or relishable, or the distress is even more relishable than the happiness. It's said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to taste the feelings of Radharani for Krishna. And he was especially tasting that feeling of distress. So, do we think that the Lord came to the material world just to be miserable, just to suffer? Why would he do such a thing? But actually, these loving sentiments, which appear to be distressing, which appear to be uh, just a form of misery, are ecstatic. They're another transcendental feature. In the spiritual love for Krishna, there's a whole category of ecstasy called um, vyabhichari bhav, disturbing ecstasy. Uh, there's there are other kinds of signs of ecstasy like singing and dancing, but then there are ecstasies called vyabhichari, disturbing, where there's fear, where there's trembling, where there's crying uh, in apparent distress. Uh, there are signs even of madness. There are signs of speaking like a crazy person. Uh, in the material world, someone starts speaking like a crazy person, we start looking for uh, a doctor or tranquilizer or something. But on the spiritual platform, these signs of madness are another feature of relishable ecstasy. Hey Radhe Brajadevi Ke Chalalite Hey Nanda Shunakuta Sri Govardhana Kopapada Patale Kalindivane Kuta Goshantavati Sarvato Brajapure Kedar Mahavyuvalo Pande Rupa Sanatano Raguyugo Sri Jiva Gopalako. The uh, Goswamis of Vrindavan were sometimes uh, wandering around, uh, chasing around Vrindavan, crying out, Krishna, where are you? Radharani, where are you? Gopis, where are you? Are you at Govardhan? Are you by the Jamuna? Where are you? And they were like madmen. They were like madmen. So that madness is divyonmada, transcendental ecstasy. And it's so relishable that it's appreciated by the devotees on the highest platform. And even the Lord himself tastes spiritual ecstasy in that uh, feeling, viyukta, feeling of separation. The Lord is neither impersonal nor impotent. He is Satchidananda Vigraha, the eternal form of knowledge and bliss. Thus, he has all the symptoms of spiritual bliss. Feeling separation from one's beloved is also an item of spiritual bliss. Materially, those who are attached to women suffer, but spiritually, when there are feelings of separation between the Lord and his pleasure potency, the spiritual bliss of the Lord increases. So, this is Krishna's nature, and it's shown in his Vrindavan pastimes, it's shown in his pastimes in Dandakaranya, when he's wandering in the forest. Um, all of these spiritual uh, manifestations are sublime. And maybe I'll stop here and see what kind of questions there might be or comments. Oh, there's already a question. Rasraj says, you said that in the spiritual world, even distress is spiritual. I heard that spiritual world is Vaikuntha. There's no anxiety or distress. So how do we get distress in the spiritual world? Yeah, no distress means the distress is enjoyable. Sometimes I heard this maybe secondhand, but with that warning, I'll say it anyway, that someone asked Prabhupada in the early days if there was snow in the spiritual world, and Prabhupada said, yes, but it's warm. So that's the idea, that in the spiritual world, there's everything, but in the material world, distress is just distressing. In the spiritual world, even distress is joyful, is ecstatic. It's not that everything's monotone. It's not that, like a Disney uh, picture where everybody's got bright smiles on their face. Everybody's, like smiling daffodils and just happy, happy, happy. There's everything. There's drama. There's separation. There's risk. There's anxiety. What if Krishna rejects me? What if the uh, yes, so many anxieties. But those anxieties are pleasurable. Those anxieties are pleasurable. That's the difference. In the material world, Vaikuntha means no material distress. Even if there's distress, the distress is enjoyable. The distress is more relishable than the material happiness. Uh, in the spiritual world, the distress is also ecstatic. The anxiety, there's anxiety. Yashoda Mai is thinking, what if Krishna gets in trouble with the monkeys? What if Krishna falls in the Jumna? There's distress, anxiety. But that anxiety is uh, an expression of love, uh, and therefore it has a special taste to it. These uh, the dealings of Sitaram, if it were just sort of happy love from beginning to end, it would be boring, wouldn't it? It'd be very uninteresting. Another day of love. And no, this whole drama is there. And that uh, raises the love to still higher peaks. In Srila Prabhupada's last days, probably everyone knows there was some controversy. Prabhupada, Govardhan Puja was coming up, and Prabhupada expressed the desire to do Govardhan Parikrama. So he's confined to his bed. He's practically just skin and bones. He's not eating. And he wants to go on Govardhan Parikrama. How is that possible? No, we'll take a bullock cart and we'll camp on the side of the hill and we'll travel. Everybody's doing Parikrama. We shall also do Parikrama. Lokanath Maharaj can arrange for the bullocks and he can lead the party. So he laid out the whole picture of a Govardhan Parikrama with the devotees who were there could take different roles. But the doctor, the Kaviraj, who was treating Prabhupada, said that his body is so delicate that at the first bump in the road, he'll expire. He'll expire. I'm doing everything to try to restore him to health, but if he goes on this parikrama at once, he'll die. So he must not go. So then devotees were pleading with Prabhupada, Prabhupada, don't go. Prabhupada said, no, I won't die, I'll live. He said, anyway, if I die, it's expected. And if I live, it's wonderful. So then there were two camps. There were the devotees, these are GBC men and sannyasis, those who said that we can't let Prabhupada go, he'll die. And then there were the other side who said that he's our spiritual master, he's given an order, we have faith in his instructions, it's our duty to do what he says. If we love him, we have to obey him. So it became a huge argument, not just an argument, but practically yelling at one another and accusations being angrily hurled. And it was just going on and on. And the devotees who were serving Prabhupada on whichever side were filled with anxiety. More than anxiety, I mean, it just came to such a pitch. Prabhupada is, and I remember seeing, outside of Prabhupada's room, there's the bullock cart in the middle of the night with these two white bulls, and they're ready to go. And Prabhupada's lying in his bed, and the Kaviraj is saying, if he goes, he'll die. So how to stop this from happening? So finally, you know the story that Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj was called in, and finally Prabhupada said, agreed that, all right, I won't go. And then the devotees were so relieved. And Bhavananda said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you put us through such anxiety. And Prabhupada said, that is my duty. That is my duty means by that pastime, everyone's love for Srila Prabhupada increased to a pitch that otherwise couldn't have been imagined. He was our spiritual master. We loved him. We served him. But when this drama took place, then the love for Srila Prabhupada just became so intensified. So this so-called distress, as shown in the pastimes of Lord Ramchandra, intensifies the ecstasy of the devotees and the Lord. In the Dwarka, we find in the last chapter of 10th canto that the queens are in a kind of despondent mood in separation from the Lord. And they're speaking to the osprey, they're speaking to the moon. You appear to the moon, you appear to be waning and wasting away. Is it because you're feeling separation as we are? The osprey, you're calling out, are you feeling separation from your mate? So these queens were feeling separation, and the acharyas make it clear that Krishna was actually there. He was actually there in Dwarka, but they were anticipating this separation or feeling separation from Krishna even while he was there. So these are all ecstatic feelings. To us, it looks like distress, it looks like misery, it looks like anxiety. But on the spiritual level, these are all ecstatic tastes. Gail, you have a question. You can turn on your microphone and
Yes.
your screen if you'd like.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. Yeah, when it comes to that pastime where Kamsa, dashed Devaki's 6 children, across against a concrete wall or whatever, that brutal killing of her infant babies. I'm always really challenged to accept that those were times of actual ecstasy for her. So I don't know if you could help me out with that.
Yeah, let me think about that for a moment. This is not exactly ecstasy by any means, but yeah, what kind of ecstasy does one feel by seeing? But these all accelerate Krishna's presence. Krishna comes to relieve the anxieties. Again, these are displays of Krishna's Lila Shakti. After all, no one's actually killed, no one's actually created, no one takes birth, no one dies. But these pastimes are creations of the Lila Shakti of the Lord, just as a director creates a drama on the stage. Uh, Hamlet is killed, uh, and then after the curtains go down, he gets up and comes in front of the curtains and takes an ovation from the audience. So we find that also. The uh, children of Devaki were apparently killed, and then Krishna brings them back. So although it's certainly in the context of things, not ecstatic, not joyful, but it's part of Krishna's transcendental drama.
But I don't know, somehow that seems to contradict what was just said, that what seems misery to us is not for the devotee, and so what can we understand that she was actually feeling?
Well, Kunti Devi says they went through so many anxieties, she and her sons, calamities, she calls them, one after another. But then when Krishna's leaving for Dwarka, she laments that these calamities are no longer taking place, because when the calamities meant that Krishna had to be there to protect them. So in this way, things are reconciled. Even in the lives of the devotees, there are, of course, this is in the material world. In the spiritual world, Kamsa has no such uh, access, and these things are not going on. But even in the material world, the devotees, what shall we say, reconcile these things or appreciate these things. That when these calamities occur, then it's the cause of Krishna appearing to save the devotee, to uh, yes, to save the devotee. I don't know if I can say much more than that. I understand your point that at the time it doesn't seem relishable, but then when one looks back in the context of everything, it gives rise to satisfaction. Uh, Misery in the material world can give rise to satisfaction when these calamities occur and then Krishna sets everything right. That satisfaction becomes greater because Krishna is relieving the devotee from so many troubles. When Sita and Rama are reunited, they're the transcendental joy of their meeting is made possible only by the separation, only by the heinous activities of Ravana and everything else that went with it. So then looking back, it becomes relishable, even if at the time it seems painful. I know I once talked to one fellow. Went to my mother's house one time, and she had a dinner guest who'd been um, a soldier in this, I forget which war, whether it was Vietnam or World War II or something. And somehow or other, I was a little interested. I got him talking about his um, what he'd gone through, and he was, as he began remembering all of these things, he got so enlivened. They were on all sides of us, and this and that, and the bullets were flying this way, and the bazookas and whatever it was, and we had to do this and we had to do that. So you can be sure at the time that they weren't feeling, wow, this is really ecstatic. But then looking back on it, he felt so much happiness, really, that this was like one of the greatest moments of his life when he was in this, you know, in the battlefield. So that's another thought, that looking back, these things. Of course, in the material world, you look on the battlefield, that's all temporary junk, because it's only in relation to the body and the mind. But on the spiritual platform, everything's related to Krishna, and therefore everything ultimately has spiritual context and spiritual value. We have a few minutes more. Is there one more
Hare,
question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
This is Sudhakar Krishna.
Hare
Maharaj,
Krishna.
I was watching Ram Navami celebrations of a very famous temple in South India this morning, and they had something like 10-hour festival, and it's a very standard thing for Ram Navami. And the thing which I'm confused is, on one side, government authorities are telling us you should not congregate, you should not mix, and even I saw some material from our GBC saying that we should do kirtan over phone and not try to congregate and all that. But on the other side, our not Iskcon temple, but people are maybe 200 people, 300 people are there trying to do puja together and all these things. So how do we balance the government regulations versus what we want to do spiritually? What's the right way of looking at it? It's very confusing, actually. And especially when in India, there's a big thing going on saying, why are the Muslims congregating and spreading the coronavirus, and now they will blame us? And how do we look at this whole thing?
Well, first of all this, it's the Muslims, it's the Hindus, it's, everybody's trading, blame, and it's the Chinese, and it's, everybody wants to blame somebody. Finally, it's the material energy that's smashing everyone. And it's not to be blamed on the Muslims or the Christians or the Hindus or the Chinese or the Italians or anyone else. That's just, politicians, what would you say, propaganda. Then, as far as I know that, I don't know about the temple you saw this morning. I saw that in Tirupati, I think I saw, or some of the big temples, they'd announced that no guests, and that the rituals would be performed by the priests and the worship of the Lord would go on, but that the public would not be permitted. If you saw 200 people in one of the major temples in India on Ram temples on Ram Navami, that was probably a very restricted subset of what would normally be there. Anyway, they have their policies. Perhaps they had 200 people without informing Mr. Modi or the local health department. I can't say. But materially speaking, there's a virus. It's highly communicable. It's spreading like anything. It makes some people very, very sick. Some people die. For many people, it's just mild and they get over it. Other people, again, it's mild, but they communicate it to others. So it doesn't appear to be just a government propaganda. We just had 2 devotees in the United Kingdom who expired due to the coronavirus. So it's not just a rumor or something that the New York Times is trying to persuade us about. That's not really true. This is all going on. So then how you choose to respond to that, that's up to you. If you want to ignore the warnings of the health department and just mix with everybody and take your risks, you're free to do that. And if you catch the coronavirus because 300 devotees gathered for a festival, you had a transcendental time. And if you catch the coronavirus, that's transcendental. And if you die, that's also transcendental. So that's one route you can take. Or the other route you can take is to say, well, it's better for the service of the Lord and maybe better for, my family and even for, spreading Krishna consciousness. It's not like the greatest propaganda that the epicenter of coronavirus in the central New Jersey area is the Hare Krishna temple, where the devotees ignored all the precautions and became the latest focal point of an outbreak. It's not really the greatest reputation. And then your family members and all of that. And then finally you die. And that may not be what you had in mind. So sometimes we accept these precautions. Since you brought up the Muslims, when the Muslims were invading Vrindavan, the devotees didn't think, well, it's Krishna's pastime. They took action. They removed the deities to Jaipur or to some safe place so that the deity would be safe, and did the needful, as they say. And the deity's worship might have been hampered. Even that Gopal deity, he was buried underground to save him from harm. And then he appeared to Madhavendra Puri later and said, I'm in such and such place. Please excavate me. So the devotees took some precaution. So it's not out of line to adjust things according to the time, place, and the circumstances.
Am I committing a Vaishnava aparadh by asking myself or asking people, hey, why is that particular? That's in Bhadrachalam actually.
Why is that particular?
Is there a Vaishnava aparadh when I say, or some aparadh when I say, hey, why are we holding this in the midst of this calamity? Why are 300 people in this small room, or in closely together without masks and all these things?
I don't know that it's a Vaishnava aparadh. It seems like of course we take it that they must be thinking about serving the Lord, but we might, it's a natural question that arises. Why are they ignoring precaution for the sake of the festival? And, I'm sure they have their explanation, and it may or may not make a lot of sense to us. But of course, we don't need to dwell on it. That's what they're doing. And, God bless them. We don't have to dwell on it and think, oh, they're so stupid, or the Gaudiya Vaishnavas would never have done that, but the Sri Vaishnavas, I don't know what gets into their heads. We don't have to indulge in that kind of useless thinking. Somehow or other, that this is what they're doing. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Anyway, Hare Krishna. In that way, we go on with our business and not dwell on it with critical thoughts of devotees. Is that okay, Kudakar?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Madhupati, should I stop here?
Okay, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. All right.
8:04. Yeah.
Thank you
very
both.
much.
Thank you very much. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Rama Rama. Premanande.
Oh,
With
thank you
Chaitanya
everybody for
Maharaj
joining.
ki jai.
Let's thank Maharaj also with a loud Haribol. Hare Krishna.
Haribol,
Haribol.
Haribol, Haribol.
Haribol.
Evil.
Haribol. Okay, Dharma.
Okay, Madhupati. Hare Krishna.
Raja, when you're sober, you can do your stuff.
Hare Krishna, Madhuvati Prabhu, you there? Okay, I'm ending this meeting.